Welcome to App Stories, a weekly exploration of the world of apps. Today's show is brought to you by Luna Display and Mac Weldon. I'm John Voorhees, and with me is my co-host, Federico Viticci. Hey, Federico.
Hello, John. How are you?
I'm doing really well. You know, it feels like we just spoke. It feels like, not even just like yesterday. It feels like hours ago or even 15 minutes ago.
Well, it's because we did, even though it doesn't sound like it. Yes, you were about to leave for New York. Unfortunately, I was not able to come down to New York because we're taking care of some family stuff here in Rome, Italy. So we had to pre-record this show a few weeks ago.
We did.
But we picked what I think is an evergreen topic. That is close to us in a very special way. Personalization and tweaking. So how do we customize, how do we personalize our devices and our apps to our liking? And this is such a huge topic that initially we thought, well, we're just going to talk about personalization on the iPhone, on the iPad, on the watch, on the Mac, and then we realized we have too many opinions about each app and each device.
Too many tweaks.
Too many tweaks to cover in a single episode. So today we're just going to focus on iOS.
Right. It's one of those topics that, as you said, is evergreen. And what I like about it on iOS is that while this is not universally true, and we'll get into a little bit about this, especially given the way you use iOS, is that it's gotten easier to carry over some of those tweaks from update to update with phones. I mean, for the longest time, my policy was stick to stock iOS no matter what, and tweak only if it was really important. And now I'm a lot more liberal with that. I mean, I do a lot more personalization because a lot of that carries over. It's not perfect. There's no doubt that when you set up a new device, even if you're working with an encrypted backup, you still have, to me, there's no rhyme or reason to it, but there's still a lot of things you have to log into and little bits here and there that you have to fix and adjust and do. But it's a lot better than it was, 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah. And I mean, of course, it gets more difficult if you're not restoring from a backup, especially because a lot of the options that I personally like to set for myself, they do not sync with iCloud. So they are included in a backup if you restore from a backup, but if you just set up a new device, it's not like these settings will come down from iCloud. It's not like syncing back your reminders that there's an iCloud server pushing down your reminders and your lists.
Right.
These settings are local to each device. So traditionally, I've always liked to do a fresh setup, fresh installation of iOS, but over the past couple of years, I have kept my backups. So it's a bit of work. So why don't we start and we talk about the most obvious thing to personalize, wallpapers.
Yes.
What is your wallpaper strategy, John?
Okay, so my strategy is on the home screen, it has to be a dark, fairly uniform wallpaper. I don't want a busy image behind my icons because it just makes it harder to find what I want. So what I've been using now for quite a while is a Simon Buckmaster wallpaper that's called Cortex Neon, I think it is, which is basically like graph paper. It's a black background with kind of a neon green graph paper. And I like it because he did a great job of kind of spacing out the grid so it works really well with the icons. And it's there, you can see it, but it's subtle and it doesn't get in the way of using the actual apps on your phone. For the lock screen, I will go with the same wallpaper for a very long time, but every now and then it just strikes me that I want to change it, and I change it. But it's always it's never. I'm not like a person who puts pictures of my family on there or pictures of people. It's usually like a photograph I've taken, or right now it actually happens to be a snippet from a design that Apple did for the reopening of the Covent Garden store in London, which I think happened just like a week or two ago, which I think I'm going to change. It was good, but I've only used that for about a week, but I'm a little tired of it already. And I have like a handful of go-tos that I'll go back to over and over again, just images that I like a lot. and I'll leave them on there anywhere from a week or two to several months. How about you?
So I also use different wallpapers for the lock screen and the home screen. Lately, I've been obsessed with these wallpapers by, his name is AR7. He's a
Oh, those are
AR7.
really good.
Yeah, he's from Italy. He's a graphic
Oh,
designer
is he?
from Italy. Yeah,
Oh, nice.
he's Italian, just has the extra Italian kick to it.
Yeah.
Which I like. These are right up my alley in that I love wallpapers based on gradients. So
Yes, they're very good.
and I love, like, I usually like to have like a colorful wallpaper on the lock screen,
Uh-huh.
but it has to be the kind of colors and the kind of gradients that make the clock readable. So the white font of the
Right.
clock has to be readable. And on the lock screen, on the home screen, I like to have something a little darker, still based on a gradient. So I'm gonna have pictures in the show notes and in the chapter art, if possible, for this segment. Right now, I have, it's called Aura Red Blue on the lock screen. And on the home screen, I have this wallpaper called, I'm trying to look up the name, Gradient Special Edition. Well, that's a good name. So it's got this gradient on the toward the bottom of the home screen, basically across the dock and the bottom row, and then all the way to the top, it's just black, which looks really cool. I also am not in favor of using pictures of family members or pets as your lock screen, though I understand why people do it. My girlfriend does it. I understand the reason. Part of the problem is that I need to take screenshots a lot, and I don't want to advertise my family members and my pets too much,
Right.
more than I already do in my screenshots. So I try to keep it pretty generic, pretty neutral, and I think colors work best for me. But something that I do for wallpapers, I save them all into an iCloud photo library album. So I have my wallpapers album that at the moment contains 60 wallpapers that I've collected over the years. I wish I could tag them like iPhone or iPad or iPhone model. I should
Yes.
probably move
Yeah.
this to iCloud Drive and use it that way. But, it's more convenient to just have an album in the Photos app.
Yeah, these are really nice wallpapers, these gradient ones. I really like gradient version 9. I'm going to call that one out, and gradient version 13 Sky.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few of them here. I really like them. I'm going to maybe try one of these soon because I haven't. I know you've tweeted about this person's wallpapers before, and I haven't really checked this out until we were doing these show notes. So yeah, I know you feel like a bad person saying you don't put your family or your pets on your wallpaper, but it's just not my thing. This episode of App Stories is brought to you by our friends at Luna Display. If you have a Mac and an iPad, listen up because there's something missing from your setup. This is big, and it's something that could change the way you interact with your devices. Something that you'll be excited to hear finally exists. And that thing is Luna Display. The good people at Luna have given us a little taste of the future. The ability to use iPads as wireless displays for your Mac. You heard me right. The iPad and Mac you already own working together in unison. This is insanely useful. Just connect over Wi-Fi or USB and boom, more screen real estate. Just plug in this little piece of hardware into your Mac and you're ready to go. This means you can even have multiple screens when you travel without having to lug around an extra monitor because seriously, who wants to do that? I use a lot of apps on my Mac throughout the day, and even with a 27-inch display, I still find myself wishing that I had more screen real estate. With Luna Display, I finally have it. I set my iPad up right next to my main display and use it as a second display to keep in touch with the Mac Stories team and to keep an eye on breaking news as I work full screen in another app on my main display. Then, when I want to get away from my desk, I just pick up the iPad and take my Mac with me in a way that isn't possible even with a MacBook, because with my MacBook, I first have to disconnect all the peripherals that I've got attached to it. Luna Display has received glowing reviews from around the web. iMore says the Luna Display will change your travel workflow. TechCrunch describes the visual fidelity as frankly stunning. An Apple insider said this is the first time a wireless solution has impressed them. I know you're going to want one of these. So go right to lunadisplay.com. Once you're there, enter the promo code AppStories at checkout and get 10% off. That's lunardisplay.com and the promo code AppStories at checkout to get 10% off the Lunar Display. Our thanks to Lunar Display for supporting the show. All right, what should we move on to next?
I see this long section of all the widgets that you have installed. Why don't you? I should have known that you were this kind of person with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
This kind of person. That sounds like an insult waiting to happen right there.
15 widgets installed. Am I correct?
Oh yeah, I'm sure that's right. It may as well be 25. Yeah, I have a lot of widgets, Federico.
Can you explain yourself?
I can explain myself. I'm going to do my best to defend my honor, my widget honor here, and that is that I don't use widgets a lot, and I do.
So like why do you keep 25 of them?
Because I do test them out when we're doing stories on the site. This is it's all your fault, Federico, because of Mac Stories.
Okay, sure.
All right. Which is kind of my go-to excuse, really, is to pin it back on you. But since I don't use it, it doesn't really matter that it's cluttered. I probably should pare this down to a few because this is a problem, I think.
Probably,
not just for me, but over and over in iOS, whether you're talking about shortcuts and you have a whole bunch of shortcuts and you have to scroll vertically through all those tiles, or you have widgets and you have to scroll vertically through all these widgets. You've got some nice solutions with shortcuts. You've been using your shortcuts to launch shortcuts. There needs to be a better way to navigate lists of things when they get long. And as a result, to me, widgets aren't super useful. I don't use them a lot, but I do use the shortcuts one a fair amount, and streaks. I'd say those are the two I use the most. And I'll check on things like, I'll check on packages with deliveries, but I've got a bunch of other ones in here, and they're just not. They probably ought to just be tossed out.
Probably. You keep saying probably. I love that you keep saying that.
Okay, probably. Well, I have to think. I have to think on this a little harder because I'm not sure. Like, for instance, I don't think recaf needs to be in there because I have a shortcut for recording caffeine. Photos, I don't really ever access photos. The
photos widget. Next thing you know, you're gonna have the mail widget installed.
No. I'm not an animal.
Sure.
I've got a lot, but I have screen time. Another one where I really don't need that there, probably. Batteries is handy.
You have the activity widget, John. You wear an Apple Watch.
I can get to my activities just anywhere I am at any given moment. Yes. Yeah, that's another one that should go.
Okay.
All right. So we'll move on because this is an area.
Sad. This is sad.
It's an area that needs personal improvement that I need to embark on this fall.
Do you know how many widgets I have installed?
Oh, you have like two.
One.
It's a good guess. I read the show notes.
I have two. One is Timer, which is the unreleased Toggl app that we're going to cover as soon as it comes out because it's really, really, really good. And the other one is Shortcuts. To be fair, I'm kind of cheating because I have shortcuts that launch other apps or other SiriKit Siri-based shortcuts.
You're a shortcut hoarder. You're a shortcut hoarder.
You say that, but in practice, I have probably 16 shortcuts total. And, all my shortcuts and the timer widget, they fit in a single screen without having to scroll. I can even see the edit button at the bottom of the list. I'm sure you haven't seen that button in ages, John.
No, it takes a while to get there.
Sure, I'm sure. So
I got to set aside a quarter hour for that.
So my shortcuts widget is I took the time to split it up in two sections. So I use 4 blank shortcuts. And they are gray rectangles that do nothing. So that at the bottom, I have my shortcut launchers that we covered a few weeks ago for work, utilities, home, social things, which is a name that I'm really proud of. Social things, health, and of course, framing screenshots with device templates. But yeah, the single screen, all my widgets are based on shortcuts essentially.
All right. Well, you win this round, Federico. I'll give it to you.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, and please don't say what I'm expecting you to say. In Control Center,
Yeah.
do you have every single option enabled?
Oh no. That would be
Okay. Okay.
no, 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 no,
Okay.
no, no, no. Not at all. I actually have mine set up, I think almost, well, at least part of it is just like yours. I have the camera in the lower left-hand corner because I'm left-handed and usually have my phone in my left hand. And I see in the notes that you've got yours down there in the left-hand corner too. Why is that? Because you're right-handed, aren't you?
I am right-handed, but I think I use my phone more with my left hand.
All right.
I find it really uncomfortable for some reason to use the phone with my right hand, but I don't do anything else with my left hand. Like I don't write.
Right.
All the things I do with my right hand. But the phone, I prefer to use when I need to use it one-handed. I prefer to use my left hand, and so
Okay.
Control Center is in the camera is in the bottom left corner because it's easier to reach with my thumb, and
Yep.
same with the flashlight. The flashlight icon is right above the camera icon.
So is mine.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I have home. I have home to the right of camera.
Control Center besties. I wasn't expecting that.
I know. I can see you're a little uncomfortable because you can see yourself sliding into the slippery slope
Oh my God.
of widgets like me. If
Becoming John Voorhees should be a movie.
yeah, exactly. It's going to happen to you someday. I'm going to make it happen.
Sure.
What do you have to the right of the camera? I've got the home app.
So the bottom row are camera, low power mode, and screen record. And the row above it is flashlight, calculator, home, and Apple TV. So these are all the options that I use. Honestly, I would love Apple to make this customizable and to have launchers for third-party apps. I would love to swap up the calculator with a pCalc launcher, for example,
Right.
or to have controls for Overcast, like dedicated controls for Overcast for things like skip to the next chapter or copy the link or something like that.
Yeah.
But I use Control Center a lot. I just really, really hate the placement on the iPhone 10 and 10s.
It's really bad. I mean, that I've used it less because of that. My bottom row is camera, home app, alarms, and Apple TV remote. And then above that is flashlight, calculator, screen recording, and low power mode. So those are my 8. I kind of wish that I could move music down to the bottom because I use music a lot. And with the 10s Max, that's really a two-handed thing. I can't hold this in my left hand and really stretch my thumb up to the play button very easily. And I do wish I had options for third-party apps. Things like, I think I talked about recently the remote for Mac app
Yes.
on iOS. If I could just like have a button here that shut off my screen on my Mac, which doesn't like to shut itself off, that would be fantastic. A bunch of other apps, like you said, pCalc and all kinds of utilities would be fantastic to have there. But, it is what it is. And unfortunately, it's harder to get to, but it is probably the number one way I get to the camera. Thanks to Mack Weldon for supporting App Stories this week. Mack Weldon make the most comfortable underwear, socks, shirts, undershirts, hoodies, and sweatpants that you'll ever wear. Frankly, Mack Weldon is better than whatever you're wearing right now, and they're so confident of this that there's a no questions asked return policy. Mack Weldon are sure that you're going to be super comfortable in whatever you buy. But if for some reason you don't like your first pair, just keep them and they'll refund you, no questions asked. By pairing premium fabrics, meticulous attention to detail, and a simple shopping experience, Mack Weldon delivers a new level of daily comfort straight to your door. Mack Weldon make undershirts that stay tucked in, socks that stay up, and waistbands that don't roll. Everything they make is made with premium cotton blended with natural fibers. And their website is built to get you in and out as quickly as possible. They don't waste your time. It's hard to know what to recommend at Mack Weldon because I've loved everything I've tried. Of course, the underwear is second to none, but I love the Mack Weldon sweatpants and shorts too, not to mention their socks. It's all amazingly soft and comfortable. Mack Weldon also have a line of silver underwear and shirts that are naturally antimicrobial. That means they eliminate odor. This is some cool science stuff. Not only do Mack Weldon's underwear, socks, and shirts look good, they perform well too. They're good for working out, for going to work, traveling, and just everyday life. Listeners of this show can get 20% off their first order at mackweldon.com with the promo code APPS at checkout. That's a very special promo code that you'll only find here and in the show notes. Again, go to mackweldon.com and use the promo code APPS for 20% off at checkout. There'll be a link in the show notes, so check it out. Thank you so much to Mack Weldon for their support of this show.
What about your share sheet? How many? Why am I even asking? How many extensions do you have in there?
Well, that's a good question. There's probably too many to count. So
just give me your most used ones.
It changes depending on what app you're in too. So it's a little hard to judge this. But let's say I'm in Safari, right? And I hit the share sheet.
Okay. Yeah.
So that's a pretty typical one to go into to share a link. So I've got messages, Linky, Yoink, Keep It, and Drafts. Those are the ones that I see first. There are others, but they don't get used as much. And then in the action extensions, there's shortcuts, save to Dropbox, which I don't really use with Safari, but it's good for other things like images, add to things, Blink, and Associate, which are both, affiliate linking apps by people I know.
Yeah, I know the developer.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
Is he? I don't know.
He's okay.
So in my share sheet, as you can imagine, I trim it down to just the apps that I want to use.
Oh,
so of course I go into the activities screen and disable all of the ones that I don't want to see. The action extensions, so the ones in the bottom row, I try and keep the same order of extensions everywhere. Of course, these settings, they don't sync between devices. So both on the iPhone and iPad, I need to open both share sheets on both devices and manually rearrange everything until the shortcuts extension is the first one, followed by Scriptable, followed by Pythonista, followed by 1Password, followed by Reading List, and so forth.
That seems a little extreme.
It needs to be
the same everywhere.
Look,
I know. I've worked with you for a few years. I know how you are.
I would pay double my iCloud fee if only Apple offered me the option to sync the position of my widgets, my action extensions, my home screen icons. Just make it a simple, call it the sync position package, and I will give you $10 extra every month. But just sync everything everywhere, please. Just not even the data, just the position. Then I will log in and download my data.
We call that the iCloud Vitici bonus pack.
So I should be in charge of Apple services to come up with these plans, honestly.
You should. Those are good ideas. The other ones I try to keep near the front are on the action extensions are Copy and Opener. Those are two that I use a lot too.
So we talked about shortcuts. I think over the past few weeks, listeners should have a pretty good idea of how we organize shortcuts and the ones that we use in the widget and in the extension. Unless there's something else you want to add to that discussion, John?
No, I don't think so. I do want to know if you use folders on your iOS devices, though, for apps.
I do. And I have this thing, of course, folders need to go on the third page of my home screen. So first page, most used apps. Second page, kind of used apps like settings and phone or apps that I'm testing. Apps that I'm testing go in the bottom row of the second page of the home screen. That's my rule. Third page, betas from test flight and folders. So Apple, entertainment, social, utilities, around, Google, work, home, games, home. I just had home. Oh, I have 2 home folders. Oh my God, wow. This is a disgrace. Oh my God.
I'm very disappointed in you.
John Voorhees' bug is catching on to me. So this has been fixed as we speak. Home, dev, which is utilities like prompt and open term and Pythonista.
Sure.
And images. So a notable, snap thread, best photos, all of these photo utilities, they go into a folder.
All right. I use folders too, but I've kind of abandoned them.
I mean, when you need to organize 1,000 apps, what's the point?
Yeah, no, we probably should have a check on that sometime and just see how many that I do have. But because I really don't know, but I use a similar approach. I've got my most used on page 1, my second most used on page 2, and then it just kind of falls apart after that.
What about custom app icons?
Yes, I use them, and the ones that I use are Carrot Weather. I've got the I don't know what the name of it is. It's like the 8-bit one, and then Drafts, which I use a black icon, and then Streaks, which is blue, and my app Blink, which I actually made kind of a yellow gradient that matches the associate icon. So you put them together, and they're like the B and the A are facing each other.
So I'm using also Carrot Weather. I don't remember the icon, but it's a purple one. It's not the pixelated one though. I have a custom icon for Apollo, the Reddit client. I think mine is called Darklink, which is a reference to Ocarina of Time with Darklink. Working copy, I alternate between the light version and the dark version of the icon. Currently, I'm using the light one. And of course, I have not necessarily custom app icons, but I have custom icons for my shortcuts on the home screen. I am not using the CGP Grey approach of a 100% Siri shortcuts home screen. I think I don't want to call it a useless exercise because if that works for great, good for him. I think most people that have copied his approach have kind of gone in the opposite direction of the purpose of this strategy.
Yeah.
Because most of these shortcuts that I see on the home screen, they could just be folders because people are treating them as app launchers. So the 3 launchers that I have on my home screen are launchers for specific actions. So my good task views, my work launcher, and my home commands launcher that basically triggers HomeKit devices or scenes. So I have 3 shortcuts icons on the home screen. And of course, because I like to keep things symmetrical, there's one shortcut launcher in the dock, but that doesn't matter because the dock doesn't have labels for app icons. But the other 2 on the main home screen, I needed to put them in each corner of the bottom row so that they will keep it symmetrical. So the 2 bottom left and bottom right corner, they don't have text labels.
All right, that sounds good. I like that approach. App themes. Do you theme any of your apps? I mean, you must use some dark themes, right? I mean, I've got a bunch that I use dark themes for.
I don't know if it's just a matter of taste or if it's my eyesight, but I don't like dark themes. Let me rephrase. I like them visually. I find white or light text hard to read against a dark background.
Huh.
Yeah, I
kind of find it the opposite personally, but maybe it's just your eyesight.
I struggle to read light text on top of a black background, either dark gray or pure black. I love the way that they look in screenshots. I try and take some of my screenshots in dark mode, but I prefer, I think there's higher contrast with a white background and black text. And so I tend to use my apps in default mode.
Okay, so I use a lot of mine in dark mode. I use Lear, Bear, Ulysses, Drafts, and Tweetbot all in dark mode.
Very nice. Let me give you, as a final segment about customization, I have a few settings that I need to change because of my peculiar situation, living in Italy, but having my device set in US English and also having a US-based Apple ID for the App Store, but an Italian iCloud account. All of this is possible on iOS, but you need to change a few things. So
yeah, you do.
So I
deal with this a little bit with my son, who's going to school in Dublin, who has to do some of the same things you do.
So, for example, I keep my device in US English for 3 reasons. First, I need to exercise my English, of course. Second, I need to know the English versions of system features because I have an English website. And third, keeping the US English language and the US region setting allows me to use Apple News in Italy. Otherwise, if I set the region to Italy, I would lose the Apple News icon on the home screen. If I just switch it to US, I can use Apple News. Now, I wonder.
Of course, you get all of our news, which isn't always the best news.
I know. And even if you keep muting certain people, certain names, you keep getting those topics.
Certain topics, yes.
I wonder what's going to happen when Apple Pay Cash launches in Italy and it realizes that I have my region set to the US, but my Apple Pay is Italian. So that's going to be fun to experiment with because
that is going to be really interesting.
Right now, it's asking for my social security number or something like that, like some number that I don't have because I'm not an American citizen. So we'll see what happens.
Right.
You can go into settings if you're like me and change Apple Maps. Instead of using miles, you can use kilometers. Even if you have a US region setting, you can say, keep the US region setting for the device, but use kilometers for Apple Maps. You just need to go into settings, maps, and you can change that. Same with the weather, but you need to go into the weather app. So go into the weather app, scroll to the bottom and change from Fahrenheit to Celsius. What else? I always need to do this and it drives me crazy. I go into settings, contacts, and I change the display name, like the way the contacts are presented in the list from last name, comma, first name to first name and last name. I don't understand why the default for, I guess, American people.
It still sorts by last name though when you do that, right? It's just that it shows the person's first name first. Is that correct or
no? Because when I open my contacts, it lists them by first name. So the first name is the one that is bold in the list.
Oh,
yeah, because I think of people with last names, not with first names, not with last names. So I like to have the first names as the index of my contacts. So that's something that I do all the time. This is not related to the region, but I also, every single time I set up a device, I go into settings, reminders, and change the default reminders list, because for some reason, my device doesn't default to the reminders list, but it defaults to my family list, which is a list that I share with my girlfriend. I don't know why this happens, but I need to change the default every single time.
Okay.
Test flight is a bit of a problem for me because I'm currently on, let me see how many betas I'm in. So I have so many betas, test flight is slow to load the list.
Same.
So it's
still loading.
It's going to get there eventually. In the meantime, I'm going to say that I have to download some apps from the Italian App Store instead of the US App Store because they're not available in the US. And to do that, I need to switch from the US App Store to the Italian one by switching Apple IDs. I can download the apps, then I need to switch back to my US account. But doing so, you know what happens? It wipes your Apple Music downloads.
Oh, no.
Yes.
Really?
It disables iCloud Music Library and removes all of your locally downloaded songs and playlists.
Oh, that's too bad.
I know. But, I need to check on my energy bill, and the app from my energy provider is only available in the Italian App Store. I need to do that. So, anyway, how many betas do I have? Is there a count in test flight?
No, there's no count. And literally, if you go to mine, if I scroll towards the bottom, mine is just littered with sticker packs. Because remember when I was... the sticker pack guy for a while.
I do.
And I think when I guess it was iOS 10 when that was about to launch. At that point, I had like 50 different sticker pack betas. So it's a very long list.
But yeah, basically test flight I mentioned because I try to keep as few betas installed as possible, and so I'm constantly checking if a beta that I have also launched on the App Store. So I go to the App Store and try to install the public version because I don't want to have the orange dots on my home screen. So yeah, I'm constantly checking, is this the last version of the app? Is it also available on the App Store? Can I stop using the beta? And so forth. So yeah, this is I think a collection of the things that I do on my phone. The iPad is mostly the same. I do a bunch of things on the Apple Watch, but I'm still experimenting with the Series 4 and the new complications. So at some point, I think we should probably do an episode just about the Apple Watch.
Yeah, we should definitely go back to that because I know we've both kind of have our initial setups, but I know neither one of us is completely satisfied with the way we have that set up. So we'll revisit that. And you know what? I may even make you listen to me talk about the Mac at some point.
Yeah, we can do that if you want.
I'll save that for a day when Federico's on vacation and I can have Stephen Hackett with me again.
There you go.
All right. Well, that's a good place to stop, Federico. I want to thank our sponsors again for this week. It's Luna Display and Mac Weldon. You can, of course, find both of us writing over at macstories.net. And Federico is on Twitter. He's Viticci, VITICCI, and I'm at John Voorhees, JOHN. VOORHWS. Talk to you next week, Federico.
Ciao, John.